Good morning, good evening, or good afternoon, depending on what side of the pond you're on, and welcome to Season 7 Preview Edition of Across the Pitch. My name is Phil Kennedy, and I'm here with my co-host, Tony Robinson, where we're getting ready to kick off what is going to be the EFL League 2 season for Accrington Stanley. This is going to be the first year since we started the podcast that Stanley has not been in League One. Of course, if you've been following along with us in the past years, or if you're just a Stanley fan in general, then you obviously know the last season didn't quite go the way that we wanted it to, with Accrington Stanley finding themselves relegated to League Two. Now, Tony, before we jump into this season, I guess, what are your thoughts on the season in terms of going into League Two? What are your kind of expectations for what you would like to see be the outcome for this season in general?
Well, first of all, Phil, it's nice to be back. We've had the summer off, like the players, and the players are getting back into the swing of things, and we've been sort of talking about our upcoming season and what we want to do, and it's like the players. It's nice to get back at it, and I think it was a tough season, for the club and really for us at the end of the season, because it, when the team was fighting relegation and it was sort of tough to get people to come on as they're buying on other things. So going into the season, I'm looking forward to a better product on the field as far as being more competitive. I'm looking forward to getting back into some player interviews, get some of the new fellows that have come in our interview room, so to speak. So I'm looking forward to that. And I think it's there's always that fresh newness to the beginning of a season. Everybody starts with a clean slate. So I'm looking forward to it, Phil. And as far as the outcome of the season, I think, as we go through the preview show, we might come up with sort of a different our point of view as to where we expect the team to be. But I'm excited to get back at it, and the season kicks off this Saturday. So let's bring it on.
I couldn't have said it better, Tony. My first thought is, what you said about last season being difficult, not only for Stanley on the pitch, but like you said, I mean, when the results aren't going the way that we want them to, everybody's needing to have maximum focus on football. It's not going to have where, players are going to be able to take time off training to go on a podcast, or that what we want to generally have to be a positive show. It's not necessarily easy to have a positive interview in the midst of a relegation battle. But I think that's what I'd probably be looking forward to most this season. It's just to seeing not being in a relegation battle. I mean, I think that, if anybody's thinking that Stanley is just going to go out and pop right back up to League One, as much as I would like to say that would be the best case scenario, it's probably unlikely, and we'll get into the reasons why that's probably unlikely. At this point, I feel like any result that sees Accrington Stanley staying in League Two next season, whether that be 5th at the table, 10th at the table, or 15th at the table, as long as it's keeping Accrington Stanley in league football the following year, that's going to be a successful season for me.
Yeah, I think
about that a little bit more later.
Yeah, I think being in League One, it was about survival, staying in the league. They did a pretty good job for those several years. And I mean, there's lots of reasons why they went down last year, and we've covered that ad infinitum, so we don't need to sort of touch on that again. But I think if you look at what people are saying, the people with the glass half full are looking for, top half finish, possibly playoffs, and those that are sort of have a glass half full are talking that they could go straight down to the bottom and maybe in the National League. And I think being in League One, you have that comfort of being there. And
the reality is somewhere in between those two scenarios.
Yeah, I think so. And I think that's why, but it's being in League Two, you don't have that comfort zone of a relegation staying in the EFL. So there is that little bit more sense of urgency to the point where you want to stay in the EFL because it's a lot easier to stay in than to get back in. And as I say, I think if we look at what the team has done to prepare for this season, hopefully, I think there's going to be people that are saying, well, the obvious thing is the players that have left, and at the moment, it looks like Ethan Hamilton is probably going to Lincoln, but some top players gone out, and we know that's strictly the business side of the game, because.
Well, to me, and that's exactly why I think that this year is really just to focus on staying where we're at. It's because this is going to be a retooling year. What we had on our roster was guys that are League One quality players making League One quality salaries. Those guys aren't going to want to play in League Two. We can't afford to pay them in League Two. What we had to do is move out some of those high salary guys like Hamilton that you mentioned. And then now I see over the next 12 to 18 months, we're going to have to use that money to kind of retool and bring in guys that could be elite players at the League Two level.
Well, I think to some degree, that has started by when you look at the people coming out of the academy and the youth team that have been given first-year pro contracts. When you look at the four players that they announced, Anderson, Davenport, Pickles, and Trickett, and I think that's part of the building process for the future. Especially Pickles and Trickett are very highly thought of, and I think we could see them in the team this year because they've really got some some good talent there, and I think bringing them in as opposed to signing free agents, which is really not within the budget this year, I think that's a sign of the direction of the team, the way that Andy wants John Coleman to go.
Absolutely. And I think that another thing that it's important for folks to want to keep in mind is that with League One, you had 4 teams that were going down every single year. So, I mean, staying up was a battle. A battle in League Two. But one thing that you have to keep in mind is that there's only 2 teams that are going down each year in League Two. So it's only half as many teams being relegated. So I really think that what I'm seeing is they don't want to reach and overpay guys this season and put themselves in a bad spot for next season. I think they're looking at what they have on board and they're saying, okay, what we have on board is not enough to compete for a League Two championship, but we can let a few pieces go and still be able to maintain our League Two status. Then that's going to give us the next 12 months to go out there, find the right pieces to bring in, and kind of allocate those funds from the guys they've sold off to be able to bring together a team that is capable of competing for the top of the table in League Two next season. I mean, that's the strategy I see playing out at least.
Yeah, and as I say, we knew there would be more people going out because of the size of the squad last year. And Andy Alt said he was going to cut the budget by 35%. And the prime example is the news of David Morgan leaving the club. I mean, he was on, from what I've been able to gather, he was on around 1,400 quid a week, which that's big money for the team. So that's part of the business side of it. He's been injured a long time, and so really, if you, as far as contribution to the team at the moment or last season was minimal, but you're cutting off some a good portion of 1,400 pounds a week. So there's
you can bring in 1.5 decent players for that.
Well, and I mean, we know the other two. And I think there was some disappointment with Michael Nottingham going because of he was such well liked as a player and by the fans, and I think people would have wanted to see him stay. But I think the replacement they've got, Kelvin Meller, hopefully is going to be in the same kind of mold as Michael Nottingham, and will fill that gap.
As much as I'd like to have Michael Nottingham back, I can't fault him. I mean, you've got a guy that maybe has 2-3 years left in his career at his age. I'm not going to want to go down a league. I'm going to want to play at the highest level I can. If he can make an extra 10,000 quid a year for the next years, I mean, that's important money for him and his family. And I think that's a big thing that people just don't quite see, is that players at the League One, League Two level, they're not making any more money than the people sitting in the stands for the most part.
That's one of the things I wanted to sort of, when I looked into it, because I initially thought about the money part of it, and to find out, speaking to people from Livingston, the money basically that he's getting in there is the same that he was getting at Stanley. I just think there was something, maybe there was a pay cut, or they just weren't matching what what he was looking for. So it's really sort of, that one is.
For some guys, do you know where he lives at? Is it a matter of just being able to be closer to home? I know for some guys.
No. He's going to have to. It'd be similar to a lot of these loan players that are coming from Norwich to Accrington. They're going to have to get accommodation close by, and I think that's going to be something that Nottingham has had to go through. And I was disappointed with Sangara, because I was expecting him to have a good season, but I think
he's someone I definitely was disappointed about, because he really seemed to turn a corner late last season. He was one of the guys that I was excited about his progress last season, and there wasn't many guys I could say that about.
No, I think the two common things that you can find about those two players, it's not really, I mean, the salary that they're going to get is similar to what they're getting at Stanley. But I think the thing, the sort of the check against them, if you want to put it that way, is that they were both spent substantial time in the trainer's room last year. And I think maybe they just felt that was too big of a risk to pay them the same amount or take a pay cut or similar pay, and with the risk of them being injured again. So I think they're looking at obviously trying to cut down the size of the squad, but I think they're trying to sort of get players that are not sort of injury prone. And that brings us to the other one.
Another thing that Harry Austin brought to my attention is it seems that a lot of the guys who left may have also been the guys that had some of the disciplinary issues. Is that where you were going next, Tony?
No, I don't know enough. I know. See, for Michael Nottingham, I've
not Nottingham, but a few of the other guys.
Well, it could be. It's something that really I haven't. And the people I've talked to, it hasn't come up in the conversation. So I can't say that there's anything to that possible, but I haven't got any confirmation of that from talking to people inside. I mean, the only person that we know of that had issues was Mitch Clark, and
it's a trifecta of problems.
Yeah, and I think he ended up getting Yeah, good one, Phil. I got that one. It took me a second, but I got it. I got it by a nose. But if you look, I mean, if you look at the back line now, it's completely fresh line, and I know that's an issue. It could be an issue, but people talked about us conceding a lot of goals last year, and we did have an inconsistent back line, but they never really gelled, and maybe a complete back line now, is something. And if you're going to start with it in League Two and see if they can gel. But it sounds like the people they brought in on loan, Shipley, I think he's going to play the left back position. And Hills, he scored a goal the other day in preseason. So I think they're going to. It looks like there's some quality that John has brought in this season, and I'm getting good reviews on that Andrews fella from Birmingham up front. There seems to be some good feedback about him, and that he's got quality about him, and that he's going to be a player. I think he's going to be listed as the number one striker, and so I think. It looks like quality of people they brought in is good. I don't think now with the news that Isherwood has signed the contract, there was rumors going around, and it was confirmed that there was somebody in camp from Man United, keeper that they were looking at. But I got a feeling if they haven't announced him as a loan signee now, and they've signed Isherwood, I think we're just going to see those two as the keepers. Toby Savin number one, and Isherwood on the bench. And you know what? I'm thinking, Phil, I think that might not be a bad thing, because when Toby Savin has had any issues, it's when he has sort of been displaced and Lonely has come in and taken his spot. And there's been mention that he hasn't handled it well off the pitch. And I'm thinking that if he knows he's going to be going in the season as the number one, with nobody sort of ready just to take over on a if he's at a bad match or whatever, I think we're going to see a better Toby Savin this year. I'm not sure if you agree with that thought, but I think it's a possibility.
I do agree, and I know that at one point there was some question as to whether he was going to be around this year, because I know in some of the early preseason matches he wasn't around, but yeah, I mean, if we're going to have him, especially with the amount of experience he has at League One, he should realistically be, one of the more experienced keepers in terms of League Two, because I mean, just based on the amount of League One experience he has, and I don't necessarily think that his displeasure the past few years has been completely unwarranted, only because I think it's really been a situation where we brought in some loan keepers from some bigger clubs where we had to give them minutes, and Toby's play, it really was never at a point where he played so bad that we should have been replacing him, and it was just kind of, we needed to get these other guys minutes, and then these other guys were also really good themselves. So then, we ended up with the bad problem to have of two quality keepers. And so, I mean, I can definitely understand, why he would have said, well, what did I really do to lose my job, kind of thing. So I'm completely on board that I think that if he can obviously stay healthy and knows that he's the number one the whole year, that he should be a solid point. It should be one of the less question marks on this squad. Now, kind of turning away from stopping goals to scoring them, that was obviously our biggest problem last year. There's kind of two returning guys that I think are going to be huge keys for us. And I want to get your thoughts on these two guys. The first guy would be, you've mentioned guys spending a lot of time in the training room. And obviously nobody has unfortunately spent more time in the training room over the past 3 years than Joe Pritchard. Now, what we have with Joe Pritchard is a guy who, when he has been healthy, has shown that he is a quality, at least League One level player. A healthy full season out of Joe Pritchard in League Two. I mean, I think that this guy realistically is a better talent than League Two. So a whole healthy season out of him, we could see some really big numbers. The other guy is Matt Lowe, who last season, obviously he had the hip injury, which was a huge issue. He did look maybe a little bit overmatched at League One. Coming up from 6th tier to 3rd tier might have just been a little bit too much to chew for him. So I think dropping down a level to League Two could be hugely beneficial to him. And honestly, I really feel like if we did have a chance to have an upper table or a good season, that it would really rely on getting big numbers out of those two guys. That those are the two guys we're going to need to stay healthy and get production out of, and maybe we could actually have a good offense.
Well, I think, first of all, Pritchard is still, I don't think he's made an appearance yet, so I think he's still on the road to recovery, and I don't know yet. Hopefully we can find out as to an estimated time of coming back. So, I mean, I think you've got to go into this season. Unfortunately, I agree with your comments about his talent and what he could do in League Two. But I think, unfortunately, we have to look at the team at the moment without Joe in it. And if he comes back, and does what he's capable of, then that's just like signing a top-notch free agent. So on that one, and I think Matt Lowe is still, he's still working to prove himself, and I think like he's going through that through preseason as well. I just think as far as in the pecking order, I think he's not in the top two as far as strikers that I would look at. I think we're going to see, if we go by looks of some of the preseason, they've been going in a 4-4-2 formation. I think we're going to look at Andrews and Adedoyan as the two strikers. Adedoyan's had a good preseason scoring, and I think in like you mentioned earlier, dropping down the division, I think that's going to be a positive for him. So I think you're going to see those two up front. I think the back line, basically it set itself because of the loanees that he brought in, and so the back line is really set. I think where the make or break it's going to be for the team is how John molds and puts out in the midfield, because there's a lot of players in that fall into that area that there's some going to start the season on the bench that people might be pushing for them to start. And I know there's a lot of people out there. Well, there's people out there with mixed opinions on Sean McConville. There's people think that he can contribute a lot to the team, and there's some think that his time has passed. I'm of the opinion that he has a lot to offer this team still. But I think I think you've got him and Sean Wally. They're that 34, 35 year age. I think you could possibly look at having those two guys share the position and just run themselves ragged for 45, 50 minutes and then come off and the other one goes in, because I think that would extend their career this season and their fitness. And I think it would allow them to sort of put all their energy and efforts into 45, 50 minutes of play. So there's, but I think we have to embrace the fact that Sean McConville is going to start unless there's something drastic happens.
And he should. And I think that I couldn't agree with your assessment more. I mean, basically, in the midfield, we're going to have three guys that are older players, adding Seamus Keneally onto the two that you've already mentioned. I believe that Seamus and Sean are actually the only two players still around from the last time that Accrington was in League Two. They're going to continue to be leaders on the team. If for nothing else, just their experience is an important thing to have out there. Because as you mentioned, I mean, the team was already young last year. They've gotten younger still. We have fewer guys that are in that like 28 to 30 age range. So, we're going to need to get some kind of production out of those veteran players because you ultimately, you're not going to win with all kids.
No, and I think that's where, when you've got a couple of players up front to aim for, and like this Andrews is a tall lad, I think that could benefit McConville with his crosses. I think if he doesn't have to do defensive duties and he can stay in that sort of the wing position and his set pieces, his crosses, I think he's got to have to be consistent in getting the ball into the box. But I think he needs to, if he, as I say, puts all his energy in and if he gets tired, then there's somebody to bring in. And I think the same thing, if you look at it, when we talk about the midfield, I think we're a better team. And we missed Seamus Keneally last year. I think when and especially his experience sitting in front of a inexperienced back four is going to be vital to.
And the amazing stuff that we were, what was it, over 500 by one game when he was in the lineup. I mean, just imagine we had gotten 10 more games out of him, we'd have probably still been in League One. Just amazing.
Well, I think that's where his experiences and leadership on the field is going to help that back four. But if you put him in the midfield and you've got McConville and or Wally in one of the other two spots, then you've got Tommy Lee's going to be playing in one of those positions. So it doesn't leave a lot of room for other players to get in. If you look at the midfield, I mean, I could see Dan Martin maybe coming in and helping, if Seamus can't go 90 or, you get good 75 minutes out of Seamus, and then you can bring Dan Martin on. That's not a bad cover for Seamus if you can bring him in. And Tommy Lee too. I think, Tommy Lee, if he's still with the club, start of the season, this could be a big season for him because the competition that he's facing.
Is he the one guy that you think we're going to hang on to?
Yeah, because right now it looks like the offers that have come in are not what the club has set. And I mean, he's not. I don't believe he's on a big salary, so it's one. The reward of keeping him, I think, the risk of keeping him is sort of outweighs selling him on the cheap. So I think it's one that I think he definitely could stay unless the team gets the offer that the money they've set for him. And so far, it sounds like they haven't. So I see him as a starter. And I'd also like to see on the other wing, I'd like to see, well, you've got Nolan that really he's played well in preseason and deserves a crack. I always like Langello. I think he makes things happen when he comes on the pitch. So you've got four positions.
He was another guy that really took steps forward last year. I mentioned earlier that, Sangari was certainly a guy I thought took steps forward last year. It was one of the few. But, if I had to name another guy that in Langello, he definitely was a guy, if he can make another step forward this year, similar to the one that he made last year, he is definitely going to be a player that is in the starting lineup every week, one of those first name on the card kind of guys.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, if I'm picking the team as from John Coleman's point of view, I think we said the back four set, 7 in goal. I think we're going to look at Keneally in the midfield. I think we're going to have McConville, and we're going to have Liam Coyle, and possibly Longello on the wing, and then Longello, if he goes off, they'd have Nolan come on. I think if McConville goes off, you got Wally coming on, and I think Matt Lowe could sub in for Adedoyan or Richard. So I think you've got cover at a lot of positions.
Liam Coyle is especially going to be an important guy, and I think that he's going to be a key guy, especially if he can rein in his disciplinary issues, because that's really been the only downside. I know at one time John Coleman last year had kind of mentioned him as being one of the guys on the club that was a League One quality player in terms of he would be on any team and getting regular minutes on any team in League One. And it was one of the only, Stanley players that maybe you could have said that about last year. I believe he turns 24 this year. So, I mean, he's not quite a veteran yet, but he's getting to the point where he's not a rookie anymore either. He's starting to get to be one of the more experienced players. And certainly...
I think he's only around 22, Phil. I don't think he's as old as that. So
I thought he was 23 last year. To double check.
Yeah, but I think he's in his... I mean, he's in his young 20s anyway, in that range. But I think what you said, I think you hit the nail on the head. Is I think this is a big season for him, not only to prove, if he wants to move to a higher level, is to show that he can get his emotions under check, because he's definitely got the talent, and I think it will show more in League Two. But he's got to stay away from those yellow cards. And that's probably one of the things that Mitch Clark was betting on is just the time that when he would get a yellow card. But I think he's going to be an important player. And as I say, if you have him and Seamus, there's no place for Dan Martin to start. And I really like Dan Martin, but I see him contributing if any of those two guys falter.
So I did look it up, and Liam Coyle is 23 and turns 24 on December 6th.
Oh, there you go. So I was wrong, and I must be looking at. I had 22, maybe.
Even a broke clock is right twice a day. So that must have been my twice a day.
Well, and he's not on a big salary either, so it's another one where he's kept, I think it's this. He's one of the players that you look for a breakout season, that sort of got some minutes last year. He played a lot last year, but I think this year is the year that if they're having some success on the pitch, and they're not conceding a lot of goals, and they're winning some games, that might take that sort of that emotional pressure off of him, and he's not. For lack of a better word, lashing out as much as he did last year, because there was some cards he got that were just out of sheer frustration, how the team had played and the way the game had gone. And so if he's in a better position, frame of mind that way, hopefully that will reduce the number of cards. But I think one of the things is, and from a fan's perspective, I think it's important that they get off to a good start. And you look at the first month of the season, I think there's some pretty good games in there to see where they stand in the scheme of things in League Two. And they don't really have a test. Well, I shouldn't say they don't have a test. Every match is a test. I don't mean it that way. But they start off with two mid-table teams from last year that if you're going to succeed in League Two, that you would expect to win, or you'd want them to win. And then at the end of the month, they play away at Salford, and I think that will be a big test. And then also, I think early September, they're away at Notts County, and that will be another a big game for them. But if you can go into those, win your matches at home, I think then if they get off to a good start, that it builds confidence, doesn't it? And gets the fans on board, and winning games makes everybody happy.
Absolutely. I mean, there's no medicine better than winning football games. And what you just said really kind of takes me into what was the last topic I wanted to cover for this kind of opening show. And that is the upcoming match on Saturday against Newport County, who they were 15th in League Two last year. They're a Welsh club that actually plays their home matches at a rugby grounds. That won't come into play Saturday because we are going to be at the Wham. Newport County is just one of those teams that's been in League Two forever. Usually they're somewhere, mid to upper table. 15th was definitely a down year last year. So at least based on past history, I'd expect that they're probably going to be coming with a little bit better than a 15th place squad tomorrow without having looked at a whole lot of their transactions. But Tony, I do really, really think that it's important, especially with this being a home match, first match in League Two, to get a positive statement, get 3 points, get a win in week one. I'm going to put you on the spot and ask, do you think we get it?
Yeah, I think they can. I think we've pretty well covered. We know for the players that are there now, we have a really good idea who's going to start. It sounds like there's goals within the squad. There's going to be chances created because I think they're going to be up against not as strong a defenses this season as last. So, and there's talent there. It's just the question is how quick the back line can come together. I mean, there's some pedigree in that back line, but it's still going to be. I think that's a big question: is how quickly they can gel, and that's going to a lot's going to rest on Seamus for helping that back line out. But yeah, I'm optimistic going into the season. I'm looking forward to watching the match, and yeah, I think. I've got to go in with the, on a positive attitude that we can come out of there with a win if we can. It gets the fans more confident, and there'll be less negative comments in social media about the team, because I think there was a lot of that last year, and I think it's good to have a clean start so everybody can look at this team in a positive light and what they can bring. And for the community and for the fans, I mean, it's so important that Stanley stays in the league, and like you said last year, if we get relegated, who's better to guide the squad than John and Jimmy? And I totally agree with that, because I think they're the right guys to have at the helm. And yeah, I'm looking forward to a win. And also, I know you've been a bit under the weather, and we've sort of our plans for some of the player interviews have been pushed back a bit. But I know you're going to be working behind the scenes to sort of set some of those up, and I'm looking forward to that. And also, when I'm over there, I'm going to try and get over to see the team in a training session, and hopefully, introduce myself to some of the new players and see what I can do with being on the ground.
That's something I'm really looking forward to is this year when you do go over, is to try to coordinate at least a one or two live recordings. Maybe you could go down to Coley's on a non-game night when it's quiet enough, and we could do a live remote recording from there or something like that. I think that would be a ton of fun.
Well, you never know what's going to happen, and I'm sort of in touch with the club as to see to what I can do behind the scenes from the press point of view, kind of thing, to sort of get some insight on what's going on, and get some of the players on. But I'm gonna say it's a team effort, because I know you'll be working with Peter and to get players on. So it takes a bit of work to put it all together. But I'm looking forward to getting back to the WAM, seeing all the people that are associated with the club, and talking to John and Jimmy, and hopefully, as I said, we can set up some interviews.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it's going to be a good season for Stanley. I think it's going to be a good season for Across the Pitch. I'm looking forward to chatting with folks new and old. I'm looking forward to talking with players, staff, hopefully getting a few supporters on like we have in the past. And most importantly, I'm looking forward to next Saturday being able to turn on follow and watch the Reds against Newport County.
Yeah, and I just want to say thanks to all the people that have supported us through all these seasons when you started, and then I came on board later. I think we've got some people that have stood up for us and appreciate the job that we do. We're trying to cover this from afar, but we have people on the ground, and obviously Darren is a valuable member of the squad.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to Darren's Legend series. We're definitely getting a few more of those in this year.
Yeah, and Peter is just a total gem for us, and
we're going to get Peter on again. I know last year we talked about having Peter on at least every other month, so we'll definitely try to do that this year too.
Yeah, so I would just say thanks to everybody for your support, because without that we wouldn't be back for season 7, and we're here.
7. It doesn't even sound real, does it, Tony?
No, especially since I think it was. The seasons didn't originally match the seasons of the club, but now we got on track with that.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to to sort of talking more Stanley on a regular basis. And this is everybody's tied for first right now, Phil. So bring on the season and let's see what Stanley can do. And fingers crossed, everything goes well. We push for playoff position.
That brings up one kind of final thought for me, Tony, and this was something I looked at the standings today, and your whole everybody's at first thing. But of course, early in the season they do list things alphabetically.
Yeah,
and AFC Wimbledon should not count. They should be down with W. You shouldn't just get to put AFC in. What is that crap?
I know I don't agree with it, but it's like they do the same thing with any AFC club. They put them at the top because it says it's, because of the A. But no, I totally agree. I mean, Accrington Stanley is the first name in football. So whether alphabetically or not, I don't agree with that. But
all I have to say is that any team that puts AFC in front of their name like that, in terms of what A stands for, they only have the first 3 letters right.
Before I forget, just another reminder: make sure you leave some money behind the bar at Coley's for my on my expense account to buy a couple of pints. Don't forget about that.
I'll make sure I get you
Okay.
the Aki Ale, is it, or
I think they go. Yeah, I think
that they have there now, right?
No, they have a popular lager there, but I think they just go with N Harrier now. I think they've dropped the term Aki Ale and they just go with the Boland's N Harrier. But any Boland product for me is a good pint. So if anybody from Boland is listening right now and you feel like sponsoring the show, give us a call.
We like beer.
Yeah. Okay, Phil, nice to talk to you, and I'm glad you're feeling better and you're back on your feet.
Yes, good to be back in the saddle, and I'm really looking forward to Saturday's match.
And what do we end up with, Phil? What do we end up on?
I'm going to say a 2-1 Stanley win.
Okay, and how do we end the show?
Oh, I thought you were going to give me your score first. What's
Oh
your
no, I'm gonna. You know what? I'll go 3-1 then.
All right. So I've got 2-1. You've got 3-1. And on 3, 1, 2, 3.
On Stanley Young.
Cheers, Tony.
Cheers, Phil.